Welcome to the Not Just Fleet podcast. Today I'm joined by Drew and Facundo, and I'm Brent. Facundo, you got the subject today. What are we talking about?
So I was thinking about a little earlier today, something that I really can't speak to. So I was like, well, I'm just going to ask you guys. Going to ask you guys. And so that was basically like, what was it in your career? I don't want to say caused you to transition, but the thought of transitioning from a tech to something else, whether it was a higher level tech or a supervisor or whatever. So, am I freezing or is it just me?
You're good. I have it recording the different way in the background, so you're fine. Just go with it.
Okay, perfect. I was like, what's going on here? So anyway, so that was the question. It was, what is it? Because I can't relate to this. I've only seen people go through it, but I've never. I mean, I've had conversations with people as they've been shifting, throughout their career and kind of going from tech to higher level tech to, shop supervisor to, something higher, fleet manager, right? So I'm kind of curious, when does a technician, so when you start out your career as a technician, let's start there. Did you guys think you were going to like, hey, I'm a technician, I love what I do, I'm going to be a tech for the rest of my life?
I think so. I think when I first became a tech, it was I want to be the best of the best. I want to be able to diagnose any system. I mean, earlier on when I first started, it was the very beginning of multiplex and CAN bus and stuff like that. So all that stuff just got me so fired up. And I was just like, man, I was diving into any piece of literature there was, trying to get any type of factory training. And just, I wanted the challenge of any and every vehicle that came through the door. I was going to be the guy that was able to fix it. And I was going to be that guy that, all the other techs would come to for diagnostic stuff. I mean, I never really got super interested in driveline or, you know, different steering and suspension. And early on in my background, when I was a young tech, I was a medium heavy duty, class 6, 7, 8 guy, and off road stuff. And nothing excited me more than being able to hook up a computer to the truck, and almost like the guys I deal with now with the cardiac monitor. I mean, you link up that computer and you can see every system there is on the engine, and you can almost think like the engine's thinking. So when I was an early tech, I just wanted to be the best diagnostic guy that I could possibly be. And actually, even when I was in UTI, I worked for one of the strongest diagnostic techs at the Chevy dealership. He was actually brilliant. He had 5 tech helpers, and he would flag over 200 hours a week. It was pretty amazing to work for him too.
It was one guy Trump. It was like one like a chef, and then you had the sous chefs.
Yeah, it was wild, dude. It was awesome. I still remember his name to this day. He was a big Japanese guy, and his name was Guy Tanita, and he was amazing because he embraced the young technicians from UTI. He knew that you were going to be there and you were going to have your days when you were up late at night and you were coming in, a little late or whatever. And it was funny because when I would show up late, he would make me do 10 push-ups for every 10 minutes that I was late or something like that. And oh my God, it was fantastic. But he was the Obi-Wan Kenobi. I mean, he knew everything about every Chevy vehicle, GMC out on the road. And he wouldn't even let you play music in the shop because he wanted to try to diagnose the vehicle before it even got into the bay. Because again, it was flat rate. And then he was assigning it to the strongest of us 5 to be able to get it going. And he would almost not micromanage your diagnostic process, but he would be there waiting in the wings for you to slow down a little bit. And he would just throw you little tidbits of information to be able to really take off. It was pretty awesome.
I was gonna say that was one hell of a guy, and then you said that he wouldn't let you play the radio. That's not cool.
Well, I thought you were going to ask because I saw you smiling there for a second, Brett, and I thought you were going to ask. So I'm going to ask, what were the most push-ups you had to do? So this is going to tell us how late you were. So don't lie, because I'll find him. What was his name? Guy what?
Dude, I think one time I was up to like 50 push-ups or something like that. It was wild. And of course, as I'm doing those push-ups, man, it was like for every 5 push-ups, I felt like I was going to throw up 15 times, because it was at a point too, UTI, and I don't know if you had this experience when you were there, Brent. You could either go during the day or you could go at night. And at first, I went during the day until one of the guys that I went with switched to nights, and he was like, "Oh my God, it's so much more laid back. None of the brass is around, and we had a way better learning experience at nighttime. It was definitely a lot more fun."
So I'm going to jump on that real quick to answer that question. I was daytime classes. However, I did double phase twice. So I did day and night. And night shift was a whole different animal. But at the Avondale campus when I went there, that was a completely different thing. They had management there at night. Everything was still regulated. Everything was pretty on top of everything still. So it wasn't the free for all that I heard stories about.
So, all right. So we'll get back to a question that I have for you, Drew. But Brent, so what was your story like? Like when you started and when you started wrenching, what were you thinking? What was Brent thinking then?
Well, do you want to know when I knew I was going to go into management?
Not, I want to know the earlier, like you were wrenching, and then walk me through like you're into it, and then what?
Yeah, so I got in. So right out of high school, went to UTI, ran through that program, ran through the Ford program, went to BMW for a little bit, didn't work, went back, did a couple small time jobs like at a tire shop that I was a mechanic at, and different little things like that. And then I got into government with the Clark County School District. And I knew that I wanted to be like, I always wanted to perform the best that I could. So, like, when I was at the school district, I was a fueler. Um, I was swing shift, so I was 3 p.m. to 11 p.m., and I still miss working that shift to this day. But the the whole thought in being the fueler and everything, most of the guys were out there and extend out their day as long as they could and get their buses done and get their route done, but fill it out with the whole 8 hours. My goal was to get it knocked out before lunch so I could get in the shop and prove my worth. And then, yeah, every position that I had since then, it's how can I perform at the highest level and make sure that I'm performing my job the best.
So, go ahead, Brent. I mean, go ahead, Drew.
Well, it's kind of funny, going back to that first job that I really call the first legitimate job at the dealer, international dealership. And I sat down in the interview process, and I was sitting there with the shop foreman. He was the highest level that they had in the shop. And he says, "Well, where do you see yourself in the future here?" And I remembered back to a conversation that I had with my high school shop teacher, and he said, "Hey man, you never want to be a full-time technician. You always want to try to move up. You want to be the shop foreman." So the thing that came out of my mouth faster than I could even think about it, he's like, "Oh, what do you want to do in a few years?" I'm like, "I want your job." And I'm like, whoa, either that could have gone over real good or real bad. But I got hired, so I guess he really didn't take too much offense to it.
I love that so much.
I'm coming for your job, dude.
That hits so close to home for me.
So was it similar for you? Like, what was that? Wait, so you were having that conversation. So it was a conversation that you had, not necessarily a moment that something happened that was like, oh, I can do something else. It was a question that for
I have an exact moment.
okay. Well, hold on. So
Hey, so go for it, Drew, and then we'll jump in here.
Yeah, this was on my initial interview when I was getting hired for the job. So I hadn't even worked there day one, and they said, where do you see yourself in the future here? And I was just like, I'm going to be, the shop foreman, or I want your job. I forget exactly how it came out, but yeah, it was at the interview process. I mean, what better place to kind of lay it all out on the line and let people know that you're just not one of those regular complacent people that's going to be fine punching the clock 9 to 5 and dragging your lunchbox in every day. If you aren't getting better and making a difference at some place, you got to go find another place to work.
All right, Brent, date, time, what were you wearing? What was the weather?
The smell in the air, was it like a little Jack in the Box? What kind of was it?
What happened?
I get to have a Golden Girls moment right here. I'm excited for this. Picture it. Italy, 1927. No, I'm just joking.
You did really well.
Yeah, I aged phenomenally. No, so May 5th, 2008, I walked in the door at a brand new job with a brand new fleet, and 6 a.m. was start time. 7 a.m. had kind of my introduction meeting with the boss and everything. Like I had the initial, like, hey, put your toolbox over there. And then I had one of the other techs that had just moved out of the tire shop, kind of showing me the ropes, showing me around the building and everything. And about 7:30, got called into the manager's office. And I was like, oh, all right, I already screwed up. That's awesome. Hour and a half into the job. And sat down. I'm like, hey, what's going on, Rick? And Rick looked at me and he goes, hey, so you're going to run this place someday. So I need you to be sure to master every position that you hold and be the best in every position that you work through. And someday you're going to take over this place. And
you started as a fueler?
I was the entry level tire shop tech.
Wow.
So, and I just realized I didn't zoom in on myself. I'm new at being the director and also talking. So, but yeah, so that was literally my first day on the job. I had my supervisor basically tell me, based on the amount of years that I have left and the amount of years that he had left and the way that things should work out, as long as I did everything correctly, I was going to be the man. And he wasn't wrong. It was just a different agency.
Was it something that he saw in you, or was he somewhat joking around, or how do you think this conversation came about?
Part of it, I think, was to, and let me zoom in. Hey, I remembered now. Part of it, I think, was to like inspire that if you work hard, dedicate yourself, and do the job correctly, you're going to be able to make it. I also think part of it was looking at the rest of the staff. At that point in time, I had
a bunch of jabronis there.
Well, no, it wasn't that. It was I had 29 years remaining. He had 15 left. Most of the guys on staff had between 14 and 19 left. So the possibility that I'm the last man standing was pretty high. And so, but it was one of those that's like, hey, you're young enough, you're inspired enough. In my interview, I put out there that, I was very motivated, very hungry to learn. And so that, like, I think it went a long way that it's like, hey, this guy probably isn't going to stay and just be a tech his whole life. And fast forward through the years and everything like that, working over there, not to like kind of jump ahead too much, but I worked as a shop lead on the shop floor. And so like I hate tooting my own horn. This is like the hardest thing to do, but whenever we had a new guy and even the senior guys, I had them coming to me often, and we would talk things out. We would talk out the problems and figure out what was going on, because I had the technical trade school, I had technology knowledge on my side, so I knew my way around computers, I knew my way around, like at that point in time, specifically Ford IDS, and I knew GM Tech 2 really well at that time. And so, like, I was a resource even walking in the door, that I knew some of the new stuff that was just coming out.
Yeah, it's funny when you're talking about being that mentor to other people in the shop. Unfortunately, I think I've been plagued with working at places that have zero to no structure. So, where we have all learned that, for every, 10 guys or 7 guys, there should be a supervisor, or there's got to be somebody between, the shop foreman and the people on the floor. There really wasn't any of that, at this one particular truck dealership. But like you said, you kind of build a relationship with younger technicians where you're easy to talk to. You don't give them that terrible word of, oh, that's a stupid question. Like, I hate that. There is, some instances where there are, I don't want to say stupid questions. What I think is that people find it easier to go ask somebody for the next step in a diagnostic process or whatever, rather than kind of push their limits and get out of their comfort zone to find the next avenue, but you build a rapport with different people, and you end up maybe even being in more of a mentor position rather than having a specific title, right? And I guess sometimes, most of the time, the title really doesn't mean anything. It's the relationship you build with people, the camaraderie in the shop. There was over 20 guys that worked on the shop floor at this place, and man, we had a heck of a time. We would, afternoon dance party after the foreman left. We'd be on the back of these drywall trucks, pumping some music. One kid had a 10-inch subwoofer that he put a little radio on top of it and a 12-volt battery, and we'd be jamming out on the back of these trucks and having a grand old time, But I mean, I think that's part of the fun of being a technician, or being in, the vehicle repair field, is people kind of are able to let loose and have a lot of fun.
I I love that you brought up mentoring the younger staff, because I've just become not the younger staff.
Welcome to the party, guys. Welcome to the party.
It took until 2018 before my previous employer hired someone younger than me. And yeah, so it was full 10 years that I was the youngest person in the building, and I was oddly mentoring my senior staff that had been in the industry longer. But nonetheless, I know what you're saying. It's the same sentiment. It's just I had a certain set of skills, and so it was, it was a different platform, a different time. And so I had all the guys that were really good nut and bolt mechanics. They were aces on everything that they had worked on, but the computerized stuff and the diagnostic side, they were lacking on a little bit. And so that was a lot of the stuff that I brought to the table. And again, it was current generation to when I graduated from trade school, versus, the guys that had been working government fleet for 20 years. Unfortunately, a lot of government fleets don't push training on the bleeding edge. It's wait for attrition and staff rotation, and then you grab a new guy that knows something better. And so, it was definitely a unique position to be the young hotshot coming in. And I got humbled a lot of times. Don't get me wrong. I actually had one of the guys that was fantastic to work with. He used to give me so much hell. But when I was that young kid on the floor at 20 years old, they would come up to me and go, "Hey, why don't you do it this way?" And I'd be like, "Oh, I know." And I was saying I know in an unintentional way. It wasn't meant to be I know because I know. It was, oh, hey, you're right. I know that now. And, so that was one of those interesting learning points of getting called out like, hey, you don't know everything. You're an idiot. You need to learn some of this stuff. Um, Stop saying I know all the time to every answer. So I don't know, Drew, Facundo, in your guys' shops or anything in your history, did you guys have like that hotshot youngster that came in that maybe answered poorly and rubbed people the wrong way, but their intent was different and like you saw something in them?
As you guys know, I was never a technician. I was always on the management side, and I came across a couple of those guys in my career. At least a couple. Two of them I really remember. I remember one time when I was at my dad's shop. I was probably 4 to 5 years, maybe, into being a service advisor, you could call it, I guess. And I go behind this car, and I had seen him like on his phone or something earlier. So then I go back there again, and he's on his phone again, and the hood's open. And I'm like, "Hey man, why are you hiding behind the hood? What are you doing? Why are you on your phone?" And he kind of stops and he looks at me and he's like, you know, something like, "The job is calls for like 4 hours. It's 3 hours into it. I'm already done. I just have it running to make sure I'm checking it all out." And in that moment, I was like, wasn't aware of what was going on. Maybe I was too young, too dumb to realize what was going on. Um, but he was kind of he was the hot, the young hotshot. He was the guy doing the all the hard jobs, the hard electrical diagnosis, like all of those things. And he was always kind of, actually, this kind of goes right into a topic that I wanted to ask you guys about, which is, you mentioned earlier, Brent, that you didn't like tooting your own horn. I've talked about tooting your own horn and celebrating your wins and sharing them in fleet management. But I was kind of curious with what you said and kind of the story that I'm sharing now. When you're a tech, like, how do you share your wins without people thinking you're that guy that I'm just describing, or this Brent guy that is like, I know, I know, I know? How do you share your wins without people being like, what's this young guy talking about?
Time. Put in the time. Drew, you got something on your mind, go for it.
All about, I think, again, pushing the envelope a little bit. Unfortunately, certifications and I don't know, going to certain training and stuff like that is kind of taken in different ways by different technicians. But I think, again, it goes down to you got to benchmark yourself against other people. And the only way, unfortunately, to do it right now in fleet is, or vehicle maintenance in general, is with ASE, EVT, or the levels of factory training that you get, whether it's Ford factory or whatever. You just got to go out there and keep getting them. And I'm always one of those guys that, listen, you earn the badge, you earn the plaque, hang it up inside the hutch of your toolbox. Um, when I worked at the first ambulance fleet, I mean, they were almost wore like a military type uniform. They had patches on both sleeves, American flag, gold name badges and stuff like that. So we wore, the
That Flavor Flav like chain with the clock on it.
it no, it wasn't the clock. I mean, these guys have, $300-400 stethoscopes on there, and then they got their name on their stethoscope. So unless you have this specific like $1,000 stethoscope, you don't have like the grill piece like these guys do and stuff like that. So yeah, we had our ASC patches right on the shoulder of our uniforms, and with the L1, L2 bars above it and stuff like that. So I think, like you said, Facundo, previously, you have to toe the line between a great saying, confidence and cockiness, or arrogance and, kind of giving yourself a little bit of self promotion. Because a lot of the times, unfortunately, you're your best marketing agent. You're not going to get a bunch from your peers. You're not going to get a bunch from leadership. And that goes back to even current day. The 100 best fleets thing. There's certain people, in my life and in my professional network. You guys, number one, understand what 100 best fleets are all about. So when we placed on the list, it was, oh my God, that's awesome. Some other people you talk to are like, oh, that's a joke. What's this thing? So I mean, I think you need to be confident in your own skills, number one, and you really have to have the skills that you're promoting. ASE and stuff like that, people can test really good and just, blow through the test. And we're doing the CAFM now. And some people, I think, are just kind of winging the test and trying to take it 3 or 4 times and pass. So, I mean, there's phonies out there all over the place. And, I guess the best way to promote yourself, similar to like you said, Brent, is when you get the test in real life, is to crush that test, diagnose the truck properly, send it out the door as fast as possible, and, show people that all of the certs and stuff that you have, really mean something, because you can have the output with your hands and your brain.
So is again, never having worked on the shop floor, looking towards the office, like, out of all the people that you guys have worked with as technicians, how many of them would you guys think, like, have had the thought, like, yes, I want to be a better tech, I want to move up, and then I want to look at being a supervisor, or I want to look at moving into some other path, the assistant fleet manager or service advisor, any of those things? Do people talk about that? Is it like, no, I don't want to, when I was in government fleet and I came back to the private side, it's like, oh, you went to the dark side. I'm like, well, it depends who you ask, what side is the dark side? So are techs talking about that, or like, what happens?
Like, so I came from what would be considered a toxic culture in fleet. I came from ASEs don't mean anything. There's no reason to get certifications. Extra education is not worth it. You prove yourself by learning yourself, but you don't need the accolades on the wall. And also, a spotlight is not the place that you want to be. So that is one of the reasons why I am 20 years into government fleet and am only at the tier that I'm at. There was a lot of doubt pushed in. There was a lot of holding back. There was a lot of, you just wait your turn and you get what you're given, not go out and outshine everyone and prove your worth.
Fleet, or this was on the private side?
This was government fleet. And that worked for me because I was entertained in my position. So that worked for a good 11 years, 10 years. But I very quickly, I get bored of the same task over and over. I had mastered everything in my position. I was looking to master everything in the next promotional position. There was no promotion available. The techs that were there were solid. They were sticking in that position. They all had, 10 years or more to go. So there wasn't really a lot of movement. And so that's really what inspired me when I went back to college was, and this is where I kind of coined my phrase of, well, 2 phrases. If everything is equal, how do you make yourself unequal to get the advantage? And then when I started college, I knew it was going to take me about 5 years because I was working full time, had family, all the whole thing. The other thing was 5 years is going by no matter what. You might as well have a degree at the end of it. And that's still, like, I'm an introvert at heart. The fact that I'm out here doing this on the internet is completely outside of what my normal personality would be. But this is pushing me, and I'm trying to expand myself into that position of being outgoing, being outspoken, and proving my brand and proving my worth and bringing it to that next tier. And, so that, like, I don't know. It's an interesting dynamic that I've been through, that it was one career session of don't be in the spotlight, don't go above and beyond. ASEs aren't worth anything. And then I had a different leader that came in for a short time in my career, which was, hey, I understand that the agency doesn't really care about ASEs, but getting an ASE or getting a certification proves that you're a member of the industry and proves that you're an active participant in the industry, not just that you're a passerby hanging out in the background.
Yeah, I think unfortunately that we are at this level, at this point in time, in a lot of the guys, fortunately, that we have made in our large professional network, and that fortunately we keep meeting conference by conference, are changing the industry from a leader level to give a time for people to have training, to appreciate them for going out and wanting to get more certifications or do different training, and encouraging them to go look for better, or to better themselves. When I was coming up through the shop, zero succession planning at any place. You came in, you punched your time card, you were given vehicles to work on. And again, it was more of that show up, shut up, and put out. Like nobody wanted to hear anything from you. Whatever way the business was being run, there was no better way to do it. And fortunately for the person that owns this shop that I started at, that they're still in business. I can't see how they have lasted this long with still having the shop foreman in place. Crazy thing is, the reason why I left that job, I was having reoccurring dreams of killing the shop foreman. That's how bad I just couldn't stand him. I mean, he was such a micromanager. He was always on top of you, trying to get you to, he unfortunately, I think for the way that he learned, he was like super ADHD, like had a hard time. He couldn't read a wiring diagram or barely read or write. So anybody that could read a wiring diagram and diagnose, he was um, felt be attacked by those type of people, and he just wanted to kind of keep putting you down to stay where you were at. So I mean, I'm thankful that we're changing the times as leaders to promote technicians, to empower them to get better, to also understand that for every dollar that you invest into a technician, you get $3 or $4 back to the company. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. So I guess to, move on maybe to the next topic or part of this conversation, there's never been any encouragement or kind of appreciation or, support to be better or do better. It had to be something that you had within to go out and get these things and, get the certifications and, ask for the training. And I hate to say it, but when I got CAT certified back in the day, you literally had to beg and do the crappiest jobs and scrub the john with your toothbrush to try to get to these classes, because they just wouldn't send you. I mean, it was unbelievable.
So, I was just thinking as you were saying it, you guys kind of talked about it a little bit, like, is it generational? Is it a combination of things where, the younger people, yeah, we can argue some of them are lazy or whatever. You have to treat them super special. but there also seems to be this work-life balance that they want to have, and so it's not all about the hustle and shut up and get in there and work and don't leave your bay until you're done with everything I throw at you. And so they look for that work-life balance. And does that work-life balance then lead to better culture on the shop floor? And then does just, being in 2025 and everybody has access to everything, and people talking about the importance of culture and all those things, that people are like, huh, that's interesting, maybe we need to bring that into the shop. I think it's also happening at a really interesting time where there's so many people retiring, where are the younger folks starting to realize, which I'm hoping there are. I've seen some pretty cool news coverage about it, that it's like, you don't have to go to a 4-year college. You can go to a technical college and come out with less debt and make about the same money, if not more, faster.
I think it was interesting. A colleague of ours said it the other day. These terms that people bring up, oh, we've always done it that way. I feel the same way when people talk about young people, or, they're lazy or this and that. We are constantly adapting and evolving to new technology when it comes to vehicles. Why can't we just adapt and overcome the challenges of new employees? We need to, as leaders, find a better way to invigorate these people to stay active, to not be on the phone, to be engaged, right? Like, and if you're just saying, oh, they're lazy, it's like, maybe you're not challenging them in the right way. Maybe, giving a entry level technician 45 LOFs one after another is not the way to keep somebody engaged. Like, hey, for every, 3 oil changes the guy does, give him a tire job. Or when you see a vehicle come in and there's some lights broken, or you go to hook up a diagnostic scan tool, invite the kid over, show him what it's all about. He's not gonna, the technician is not going to be able to fix the vehicle at an entry level experience, but at the same time, why not just introduce him to it? Pull him away from the job for 5 or 10 minutes and just give him something that's going to open his eyes. And technology, especially with the youngest of the people entering the workforce, is what they want to be involved in. And I think when I was getting into the trades, they said, hey, you got to push a broom before you can type on a laptop. I still feel like it's that way, but I think we need to use different terminology, right? Like, everybody nowadays, thank God, is taking part in cleaning the shop and things like that. It's not like, hey, the lowest guy on the totem pole always empties the trash, but I hate that phrase, or trying to say all young people are lazy. Like, no, I think it is, a leader or somebody running a shop, you got to figure out how to challenge people constantly.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And I think also the generational shift on the government side of it is really driving a lot of change. I mean, when you look out here, I'm in the Las Vegas Valley. We're a new city. Like, we don't have hundreds of years. We're arguably not even 100 years old.
Do you even have cobblestone walkways in any of the casinos, or no cobblestones at all?
They're not real.
I mean, at least they're faking it, right? I mean, that's cool.
Well, yeah, we fake everything. We have Paris. We have, every location around the world that's cool. We have here.
Yes, right in the middle of Las Vegas with the people singing in Italian. Those guys are actually they're from Texas. I mean, they've got Southern accents. They sing in Italian.
The Mexican guy speaking Italian did a really good job. So, don't give him hate. All right. And
ambulances blow hubcaps off on cobblestone roads when I used to work in Lowell. And they actually had a restaurant called Cobblestone. So sorry. Okay. New city. Come on.
No.
All your brand new stuff.
So, yeah, all the brand new stuff. So, one of my fleet shops is essentially the original to the city, and it was built in 1956. We're not old. I'm like the 3rd generation of fleet leadership. So, because you figure the first fleet manager got hired as the fleet manager to start with, more than likely, and he did somewhere between 15 and 30 years. So that took you into the 70s or the 80s. The next,
Clint Eastwood that was hired out in Vegas. I mean, just
we prefer to think of him as one of the mafia, but it could be Clint. That's cool. I mean, there we go. Yeah,
with a bunch of bleach and baking soda and stuff like that in the back, just for.
We had things that needed taken care of, so don't worry about our sanitation team.
Where do you hide a body in the desert? I mean, well, that's kind of a stupid question, but you can't like throw them in a river.
Don't ask that. The amount of unknown mine shafts out here is literally a problem.
Have you ever seen the carp on the Hoover Dam, dude? Those things are like the size of Volkswagens. You have one body, you throw it down there, it's gone.
You guys didn't see the barrels a couple of years ago that were surfacing with skeletons in them? Lake Mead literally hit the lowest levels since it was being filled in the 1930s, and there was a whole bunch of barrels and bodies found. Don't worry about that. That's history. That's behind us. Don't worry about that. But yeah, so like you think of it, I'm basically like third, maybe fourth generation of fleet leadership within our city. And so with that, you think 1950s mechanics were literally self-taught guys. The grease monkey mentality was it. Points and condensers, everything could be fixed with a wrench and a screwdriver. And the second generation was the 70s and 80s, so that was early fuel injection, late carburetors. Still, everything could pretty much be fixed with a screwdriver, a wrench, and now a test light.
Did they introduce duct tape and baling wire at that point?
We're government. We replace our vehicles.
Hammers. I mean, were hammers like 70s, or when was a hammer really used?
Oh, so I'm getting to that because that tech just retired. Hammer and pry bar. That was introduced in the 90s. That's a new technology for us, and he just left us a little bit ago. He gave himself hell for being his only tools were a hammer and a pry bar. He was actually a really good tech that left, and we miss him. But thankfully, he's enjoying retirement.
Work on an airbag with that. I mean, just like let me work on that airbag. Bam!
If you hit the back of it, you're fine.
I'm not going to try.
He survived. We'll just say that he did his 30. But it's with every generation you get a new leap, and the last generation was very guard your job because a government job, they're not available. Like most of the government guys up until now stuck in a position and lived it for 30 years. They did their entire term until they retired. And now the new group that's coming in, 2010, 2015, they're jumping around and jockeying jobs, and it's all about jump the paycheck. How can you get the most? How can you maximize your retirement? But with that, there's a lot more education expectation. And coming from the half group in between, my leadership style, I want my guys educated. I want my guys to know more than I know. If they're coming to me for advice or to talk it out, that's one thing. If they're coming to me as the expert, there's a problem. And I want my guys to know more than me. I want to go up to them and be like, what are you guys talking about? This is new. Teach me. Instead of, hey, this is how you do this. We just need to rock through this real quick.
Love that, because that is such like a management thing to do. Like, when the CEO hires a VP or somebody else in the company, he wants that person to be smarter than he is in X, Y, and Z. Otherwise, he could do it himself, probably, right?
Well, and that's
technician.
That's been the unfortunate. My first government job, and I wish I could say that I was completely wrong, but I kept in touch with a few people that were there for long after I left. And the perception of everyone on the shop floor was those who can't do get promoted. So if they weren't a good tech, they didn't prove their mettle on the shop floor, they got moved up. But if you were worth it, they held you on the shop floor because you produced. My second government job was you will promote when space allows because you've been here long enough, not because you earned it. And now my position that I'm in now in leadership, I don't want my staff to feel that. I don't want them to feel like there's nothing for tomorrow. I want them to know, for a matter of fact, tomorrow might not be with me, but there's definitely a heck of a lot available out there. And I want to make sure that you're ready for that next step. And it's not for everyone. It's not everyone is going to be able to take advantage of this. But there's a few guys that definitely stepped up and stepped forward that are like, hey, I really want to go this route. And it's like, cool, I'll invest in everyone, but I'm going to invest in those that definitely want to put forward. And, just to jump a little bit, like the industry standard, at least on the government side, is like 40 hours of education per year is kind of the standard for techs. I want my guys to see 100, 150, 200 hours if I can. And like my first year that I came in, we got to budget season and I was like, our training budget is junk. I need a lot more. And at the moment it was like $6,000 or $8,000. Now I have like a $65,000 a year annual training budget. And
that budget includes payroll or doesn't include payroll?
Not payroll. That's bringing training to us, because it's a lot easier to bring the training to us than it is to send my guys out of town. So it's like, yeah, I bring Cummins in every year. Granted, yeah, the light duty side, I don't have Ram trucks that have Cummins in them. I have, Chevys and Fords. I'm, potentially going to get some Cummins trucks in, but if you learn the diagnostic system, you learn what the PIDs mean, you learn what the stuff means. Drew, back me up on this. It's all the same across every system. You just have to learn where the hell it's at.
Yep. And I can relate this, big, huge, unfortunately have to say this, Facundo, because you're a Jersey American football fan. It's like getting a new playbook, right? You go from one football team to another, the outcome of the game is the same. You want to get, first down or, 5, 6 yards, 10 yards is a first down. And maybe the language is a little bit different, but like you said, the PIDs and the way you test the different sensors, all of that theory is exactly the same. So
the parameter is different, but what it means is the same.
Right. Yep, exactly.
And like I'm planning to bring in like an air brake class this October. I have everybody attending a pretty major fleet conference in September. They're unfortunately not going to be able to participate the whole week, but at least for one day they're going to be able to jump in so that I could rotate everybody through and kind of get them up to speed. And it's just like, at least on my side of it, a lot of that is I wasn't outwardly given a whole lot of educational ability. And I'm like, I'll be damned if my guys are going to deal with that. And again, I kind of hate the term my guys because, they're not mine. But I want to make sure that the opportunity is there for anyone that works with me, that they can promote, they can better themselves if they're interested. But it's both sides that need to put into that. Like
I think the message that we've kind of been putting out so far, especially from the technician level, is the two of us and a lot of people that have come up, through the industry so far, you've had to beg and plead and scratch and pull to make sure that you're the guy that's getting the training. New technicians that are coming up, make sure your foundation is strong and you are getting the work done. But the second anybody offers any type of training, just go for it. Whether it's, LED light bulbs and you're like, oh man, I already know, the theory of an LED bulb, you're always going to have that one or two takeaways. Great guy that, we've all been to a few of his conferences and his talks. Kind of keep a notebook when you're in these classes and just write down one or two things that, maybe you don't know, or the way that they talked about diagnosing them was a little bit different. So after the class, great thing to do is send a little note to your leader and say, hey, I went to a class on air brakes and I understand the theory of a, 30-30 can, and I understand that it has a service side and it has a parking brake side, but I learned a little bit something different about adjusting the throw of the slack adjuster and how the geometry has a better effect on the brake shoes or whatever, and just, hey, I think this could really prolong the life cycle of our brakes if we go about it in this type of way. So I think, Facundo, where you're trying to get with this whole conversation, is how the heck do we get where we are now, type of deal, right? Let's put a little gas on this story. And unfortunately, again, I think baseline on what we've both been saying is we've been led by crappy leaders. And when you're led by the blind mice, you're always the one that wants to take those glasses off and try to lead the show. And that's honestly how I got into fleet management, leading people in general. Unfortunately, this gentleman that did lead me, back at this truck dealership, he's not a bad person. He just didn't know anything about leadership, didn't really know how to bring people along, but he really ignited the fire behind me to say, hey, I can do this. I know that I can get into a fleet position. Because even when we worked at this dealership, we had reoccurring customers where we took care of their fleet. And it always goes back to, for me, I don't want to have to continually repair somebody else's crappy workmanship. And when you're in fleet, you fix it right, the person beside you fixes it right, and then when it comes back, it's not that hunk of junk that you saw the first time around. At least it has quality repairs. So once I was kind of frustrated about the leadership that I had, I was kind of thrown right into the mix of things. It came to the point where a vendor came to me and said, hey, this ambulance shop down the street, their fleet manager is moving to North Carolina, to follow a relationship. I think you should go there and put in an application. 100%. Promotions and everything in your professional career leads back to your professional network, whether it's a vendor, if you're at a technician level, people that are coming in, chat it up with them. You have the nut and bolt guy, you have the guy that's coming in to sell oil. Be kind to them.
Everything. Those guys know everything because they're in all the shops, right?
The vendors know everything. Yeah, that is 100%.
He's bringing in, a couple of drums of oil or something like that. Make sure he's got a clear path to where, you need to put it. The other thing too, be a voice back to the vendor. And if your, manager or whatever is aggravated about something that a delivery driver did, or you maybe think the quality of the product has gone downhill, make sure you talk to him and let him kind of know what's going on. So this oil vendor came to me and he was like, hey, this ambulance shop is looking for, a leader. You should go check it out. And I went there, and that's really how the door opened up for me in, the fleet leadership industry, and I, man, I can wish I could go and thank this guy 500 times over. I always have every time I've seen him. But I mean, that's where frustration towards poor leadership is what really drove me to say, hey, I can do this and I can do it better, and I want to give it a shot.
So I like the sports analogies, right? Like the sports analogies in fleet management has always been my jam. So it's kind of like when you're looking for, you're a decent player on obviously soccer's my thing, but I do know the American football. Okay. I know that sport. Okay. I know there's 7 downs. I'm just kidding.
What about baseball? The real American pastime.
So, what I was saying, so like as a player, you can be the best player on the team. You can, have success, but potentially when you move to a better team, now you're just like an average player, but you have a really good coach that's pushing you to be better. And so the growth that you have on this team, that now you're just average, but you have a really good coach, you're actually experiencing a bunch of professional growth, as opposed to being really good on a not so good team that a coach isn't really pushing you. So you always feel like you're the top guy. And so I think kind of what you were saying, Drew, is like, it's no different as a technician in the shop environment where, it's really good to be challenged. Sometimes it'll be difficult and frustrating. But it's really somebody pushing you to get better.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, like my experience coming up through the ranks and everything is kind of like the group in front of me built a ladder and tore it down behind, but they threw pieces of paper back with little bits of information, but it wasn't in the right order on how to build that ladder. And what I want for anyone that's on my staff coming up behind me is I've rebuilt the ladder. They have to take the effort and climb it. And I want everyone to make it to the top. Not everyone is going to be willing to make the climb, but I want there to be a clear path and a clear ability for everyone to have an opportunity to get to the top. Whether or not it's with my group, with my agency, I want everyone to succeed and be ready for that climb. And whether or not they actually climb it, that's up to them individually, because we can't force someone, or you shouldn't force someone to jump into a leadership role unless they're innately going to be a leader.
I think that's, an amazing thing that just empowers me with the network that we've built. Going back to the poor leadership, I think in shops previously, the leaders would let you get to be a certain level of a technician where you were just about to start like grasping at their toes, and then they would like sandbag you enough so you fell back down. The common goal for everybody right in our network is build the greatest succession plan ever. Like, I'm literally drawing play by play. Like, hey man, if you want it, come get it, and I want you to push me out of the door, because the greatest thing about that, going back to sports, when you're challenged in any level of sports from the position behind you, football just ended training camp right now. All of these guys were driven by rookies, by number twos, all this type of stuff to push themselves and get better. And if you don't have the guys on the shop floor hungry, nipping at your toes, you're going to be that complacent leader that just doesn't want to, it doesn't have the drive to get any better because nobody's coming after you. So,
100%. Yeah. If I don't surf, but as a surfing analogy, if the wave isn't there to push me forward, I'm not progressing. So I better build that wave.
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing that you said, Brent, that I really liked was that analogy of kind of building that ladder for the people there to climb it. Whereas, and Drew, you were describing this, like in older fleets, it was like there are these silos. Like, okay, you're entering as a tech, but you're going to stay there, and you're entering as a service advisor, and you're going to stay there. And then you're in management, and you're going to stay over there, and nobody gets to build these bridges or these ladders to connect. And I think that is what I've really been passionate about, kind of bringing this full circle here. One of the things that I've been super passionate about lately is, well, who's talking to the technicians when they're thinking about being a tech when they're young, or where they're making a decision about, are they going to go to college or trade school, or when they're thinking about these things? Who's telling them, like, hey, by the way, you don't need to just think about trade school. Like, I mean, not trade school. You don't think you need to think about trade school in just the, I'm going to be a technician silo, because that's what your father did, right? Like in what we're talking about. It's different now. Like, you've got these ladders connecting these opportunities. And so, yeah, you might have to start, you can't go in there being the manager. You got to start somewhere. And that somewhere is probably a technician. And you work your way up through the ranks. And I think that could be, hopefully, I have no idea how long this is going to take, but hopefully it's the fix to this shortage that we have of technicians being available in the game that everybody plays with, shuffling around all the time.
And 100% with you on that, that it's, you also can't think in terms of your career. You have to think in terms of, what am I doing next month? What am I doing next year? And what am I doing in 5 years? If you're thinking past 5 years, you're kind of fooling yourself. Like that expanse is too big to really get out there. And so make your plan, write it out, put it on a piece of paper on your mirror so you see it every morning, and read it to yourself that, hey, this month I'm going to do my job right now the best that I can. This year I'm going to learn something towards the job that I want. And in 5 years, I'm going to be able to perform the job that I want. And just keep pushing that and keep running it and keep running it. And over your 30-year career, you're not only holding 1 or 2 jobs, you're holding 6 or 7 or 8. And just keep that constant progression, keep that constant pressure. And from the bottom end of it, push your leadership and let them know that you're worth putting money into. And if they're not doing it, put money into yourself and get out of there.
Total. Well, so that to me sounds like a wrapping up this episode. So, Drew, what are your closing thoughts?
When you are at any level in any fleet, right? We're talking entry level on. The first thing that you always have to remember is your foundational skills, nuts and bolts. Hey, I need to make sure I talk things properly. I need to make sure I understand diagnostic flow charts and just, how to put something together by the manual. That's your foundation. You need to be pushing the envelope day in and day out to, hey, I'm going to do the next, I'm going to do this job a little bit faster. I'm going to do the next diagnostic level. I'm going to then, talk to my leader about different types of trainings. It's on you to be the one to go out and get that training and to push. And it's to the leaders to understand that you have hungry technicians and you have people that are willing to learn and adapt and feed them as much as you can. Just like growing anything in the garden, you fertilize it, it's going to grow and the fruit's going to come, and all of a sudden you're going to be so excited with what all these plants produce.
I mean, for me, like, this conversation has been, I've learned a lot of things because I was never a technician. I've always kind of been like a technician bro, you know what I mean? Like, not officially a technician, but hey, this guy sounds like he's a technician, but give him a wrench. You probably doesn't know what the hell he's doing. But it kind of helped open my eyes to see how it's changed a little bit over the last, and really not that long. I mean, it's 15 years, maybe 10 years that there's really been a change. So I think, yeah, I mean, I would continue to encourage fleet managers to challenge their techs, or when you talk to fleet managers, what are you guys doing to recruit new techs? Well, we're doing X, Y, and Z. Start having conversations with them. And I love what you said, Brent, which was, live for today, this month, have a plan for next, for this year. What are you going to accomplish this year? What do you think you want to be doing in 5 years? And then you can kind of revisit that, as a technician. I mean, really in any position, but as a technician, because I think a technician has so much to gain. And I really think that the unlock in the industry isn't at the fleet manager level. It's at the middle management. It's at the supervisor. It's at the technician level. And of course, the unlock is for the people that we need to change the mind of, like, hey, maybe you don't need to be a doctor or a lawyer. Maybe you need to be a technician, and work your way up through the ranks and live your life that way. You might enjoy it a lot more. You have a lot less stress. So anyway, any other fun? Go ahead.
Well, you wrap it up, Brent. It's your turn here coming, but I just think I came up with something pretty interesting. You guys at one point said you wanted to come up with a little game to accentuate my accent, have me say all these weird words. I think we should also kind of branch off that, and we should put hand tools or other different tools up in a picture and see if Facundo can identify these different mechanical tools.
My God, that's great, and I'm terrified for what you two come up to challenge me.
But I don't know, some kind of like a kitchen tool in there and try to trick me. There've got to be real tools. I'm good.
The amount of times I've used dental tools to fix things, you might be a little bit up shit creek there, buddy.
I go to the doctor somewhat regularly, so I mean, when they're not scaring me, I can be like, oh, I recognize that one from the doctor, from the dentist. All right, Brent, you wrap it up here.
All right. So, moral of the story is, to any technician out there that has a leader, if they're a true leader, they're propping you up and getting you ready for the next thing. If they're your boss, they're telling you what to do and kind of holding you back. So push them to be a leader. And if they're not, be the leader. Lead yourself. Push to that next level. Get that training. Get that knowledge. Push, push, push. Be the wave to drive the surfboard to push the entire organization forward. There will be positions for you. So just be ready to jump on the next thing. Be today the best person you can be. Be this month the best technician you can be. Be this year someone that you can push towards your next goal. And in 5 years, hold that goal hostage and own it. So just keep moving forward. Thank you all so much for joining us today on Not Just Fleet podcast. Kind of a new format for us. We're absolutely enjoying it, and we plan on thriving in this format for a while. Make sure that you like, subscribe, comment, do all of the fun things. Hit us up in our email address. It is an old email address, but it's still going to operate. So make sure that you are, following us on LinkedIn, and make sure that you're being a participant. We want to be there, and we might not know everything, but we definitely know that we want everyone to succeed and promote and do better in their life and in their personal situation. And when it comes to fleet and anything in this realm and in automotive, there's always another position available somewhere within the world, within the country. We've seen our analytics. We have people from all over the world watching us. And so no matter where you want to go, no matter where you want to do, reach out. We probably have a contact to be able to get something going for you, or at least give bad advice, which is what we're excellent for. So make sure and join us on the next episode. It's going to be a good time, guys. We really appreciate everybody sticking around and hanging out with us. So we'll see you the next episode.
Later, boys.
Bye.
Bye.